record this. We've got Ginny from Syracuse, New York. Excellent. Welcome, Ginny. We've got, is it Hyla or Gila from Seattle? We've got Natalie Laureate from France. Excellent. Are you with me on both platforms, Natalie, on Instagram and on the webinar? Whoa, you are dedicated. Dedicated. Love that. Love that. Love that. Okay, let's get rolling. Let's get rolling. We've got so much to talk about today, right? I do want to thank you for being with me today. And because I know there's so many things. Life is so busy anymore, you know, and even with the COVID lockdowns, it has slowed some things down, but it has really sped other things up. So I know you could be doing probably a million other things, and I thank you for prioritizing this. I hope that by the end of our time together today, you'll have more clarity about where iridology has come from, where it is now, and where it's going as we look at the evolution of the language and the evolution of the research. It's important for us to remember that iridology has been evolving for nearly 200 years, and our understanding of iridology has undergone massive changes, and research has moved us forward, at least those of us who have chosen to keep up with the times. Now, somehow in that forward movement, the old language has persisted, and that means the old information is persisting, and that old information is really misleading, and it reflects a lack of understanding of the up-to-date research. And this is so critical. You know, when people are seeking help on any level, they want the latest research. They want to know that what they're getting is the best information, correct? And if we're working with old information, it's not going to work. You know, I've got nutrition books in my library that you can see behind me here. That's not all of my library, that's just some of it, that are from the early 2000s that say 400 IUs of vitamin D is the upper limit. More than that will kill you. Literally will kill you. What do we know now? We know that that's totally wrong, right? So we need to keep current if we actually want to be useful for our clients. Oh, and we've got more people that have joined us on the webinar as well. We've got Natalie Cook and Alice Christou. Thank you so much for being with me. And we've got lots of people joining us on Instagram, Oxford Iridology and Mayamez. Thank you for being there. You're going to notice as we go through marker names today, and of course, we don't have time to cover every marker in iridology. We're just going to hit some highlights today, that the old language was very diagnostic in nature, and the new language instead is very descriptive. So just before we launch into that, I'm going to take a moment to introduce myself. Sharon, welcome to the webinar. Good to have you with us. My name is Judith Cobb. I'm a master herbalist, a natural nutrition clinical practitioner, a certified comprehensive iridologist, and a certified comprehensive iridology instructor. I have been in the wellness industry as a health coach for 4 decades. 4 decades. Karen, welcome to the webinar. And in those decades, I have studied Jansenian iridology, which is what I'm going to call old school iridology. Did that for about 10 years before I realized, no, it didn't take me 10 years. I wasn't that slow. I started figuring out after about 5 years that it wasn't working. There was something missing with it. And that was, as my dissatisfaction grew, the opportunity presented itself for me to learn constitutional iridology. And that was a huge turning point for me in my practice, in my clinical work, in everything that I do here. And it was very exciting to learn that. Hello, honeybee. Good to see you on Instagram. That turning point, that learning of constitutional iridology was huge. Absolutely huge, and it made such a difference for me. Faith, it's good to have you with us on the Facebook group. Thank you for being there. Just before we get into our hardcore content for today, I would like to spend just 2 minutes to introduce you to the Dynamic Iridology Assessment System course that is about to start in April. And then we're going to look at markers. Does that sound okay with you? That okay? I promise it'll only be 2 minutes, if that. The Dynamic Iridology Assessment System for holistic health practitioners is the only live, online, fully mentored course for nutritionists, herbalists, and naturopaths who want to streamline their clinical work without sacrificing client care. How does that sound to you? If you could do more in less time and not give up any client care, as a matter of fact, enhance your client care, would that be a good thing? If it is, I want to see a 1 in the comments. And we want to do this because so many practitioners spend so much of their own time unpaid creating protocols. So the purpose of this Iridology program is actually to help you as practitioners stop doing unpaid overtime to create your wellness programs for your clients, so you can stop overwhelming your clients with programs that are just simply not manageable, and so that you can create programs that will actually increase client compliance and client success and help to instill long-term retention. Does that sound good? If that sounds good to you, I want to see a yes in the comments. Now you're going to find, as we work on this together today, thank you, Sharon, you're going to find that as we do this today, if you play with me in my sandbox and give me comments when I ask for them and feedback, I'm going to give you more information. Thank you, Honeybee. Thank you, Karen. Excellent. We've got lots of yeses coming in. So if you are a holistic health professional who is interested in learning iridology, and if you want to learn more than just iris markers, if you actually want to learn how the markers work together, how to use the markers in correlation to your client's symptoms, if you actually want to be mentored in learning how to use iridology, learning how to create programs for your clients, and if you want long-term support and mentoring after your iridology course is done, or if you already know iridology and you want to update your skills, and if you are prepared to invest fully in a mentored program, stay with me, because at the end of our time together today, I'm going to spend about 10 seconds to let you know how you can get details about the upcoming course. There we go. That's the commercial for today. Oh, sorry, I forgot I had this slide. The goal of the course of Confident Nutrition, we've changed the name, of the Dynamic Iridology Assessment System for Holistic Health Professionals, is to teach you constitutional iridology and how to use it confidently, so you can easily integrate what you already know about nutrition or herbology to confidently create doable client programs in your paid client sessions. Okay, so that's what it's all about. Now let's look at some eyes. Excellent. All right. I would like, I'd like a comment, please. How many of you are familiar with Jensenian iridology? And you would know it was Jensenian if you are familiar with words like lesion, cholesterol ring, nerve rings. If you are familiar with Jensenian, give me Jensen in the comments. All right, so as we launch into this, when we are looking at this set of eyes, we are looking particular. So Sharon knows a little about Jensen. Excellent, thank you for that. Debbie says that is what she learned. These markings are what Jensen would have called lesions. Now, I don't know about you, but lesion is a word that to me feels icky. Honeybee learned Jensen. Thank you for that. And Ginny knows some Jensen as well. Excellent. So when I think of lesion, I think of a cancerous lesion, right? That's where my brain goes. I go to the big C, and that's not great. When we understand lesion, again, the definition of it technically out there in the world, not just in iridology, is a region or organ or tissue which has suffered damage through injury or disease, such as a wound, ulcer, abscess, or tumor. Laureate says she knows Jensen and Deck. Excellent. Thank you so much. The up-to-date understanding is that the lay of iris fibers does not change as a result of trauma. Now, Jensen used to teach that if you'd had trauma or if there was damage in an area, then this would show up. And again, we did a full webinar last week on trauma and how it actually does not show up in the eyes. So Lesion is saying that there is a trauma here and here and here. Lacuna, by contrast, which is the new word, the modern word, simply means an unfilled space or gap. A lacuna in iridology brings our attention to a reaction field in the iris, but it does not tell us what is inherently wrong there. Lacunae are inherited markings. And Oxford says lesion is not positive language to use with our clients. It is absolutely not. Because if their brain goes the same place that mine does, and maybe yours does, where lesion means cancer, that's setting up a fear response. And we don't need that, right? We absolutely don't need that in our clients at all. When we see a lacuna, it brings our attention to that area again, but it doesn't tell us what is inherently wrong there. Lacunae are inherited. They are passed down from the last 3 or 4 generations. So when we see a lacuna, we need to have a conversation with the client to understand the family and personal history that relates to that marking. When we have several lacunae in an iris, like we see in this image that's on your screen, each one is not important. It's how they play off of each other that gives us the depth of understanding that we need. It's understanding our client's symptoms that helps us to understand where we need to focus our attention when it comes to understanding these lacuna. It must be remembered that the client may be fully aware of health risks in that related area and may already be doing what needs to be done to protect their health. And in doing those things, these markings are not going away. They are inherited. They are not transient. And so if the client is doing the right things to protect their health and to help their body function better, that's fabulous. That's fabulous, but it's not going to make this marking change or disappear in the eyes. Okay, are we all good? We are forever moving forward and calling these, a single one is a lacuna, many of them are lacunae. Are we good? If we're good, give me a good in the comments. All righty, and so the next one, thank you, Sharon, I appreciate that. The next marking we're going to talk about is this around the end. Thank you, Karen. Mark coming around here. This in Jensenian used to be called a sodium ring or a cholesterol ring. We now call this a lipemic diaphysis. Here is the difference in understanding. While there is some correlation between the presence of a lipemic diaphysis, thank you, Oxford, appreciate that. There is some correlation between the presence of a lipemic diaphysis and of hardening of the arteries and of senility. It's not a super strong correlation. Why do I mention senility? Because when this is at the top, it's called an arcus senilis or an arc of senility. Who would like to hear that? You're talking to a holistic professional. You have a white milky film at the top of your iris, and they say you have an arc of senility. How is that going to make your day? And if there is dementia in the family, what kind of a fear level is that going to instill for you? Right? So we're not going to use that. The new names that we use for this, lipemic diaphysis is the overarching name, and it breaks down into corneal arcus, corneal annulus, and those kind of can be lumped together as corneal opacity, because this describes what the marker looks like. Our new terms are descriptive of what the marker looks like. They are not diagnostic. Lipemic diaphysis suggests that there is an inherent imbalance in the body that means that the liver doesn't process carbs properly to manage the lipid balance. So when we see this, we want to ask several questions, and we want to look for some other markers as well. We want to ask questions about personal and family history of cholesterol, triglycerides. We want to ask questions about things like type 2 diabetes, insulin resistance, because they all play together. But I'm never going to look at this and tell my client, you have hardening of the arteries. Right? I'm going to ask questions instead that point in that direction. I may even ask for them to go back to their medical doctor and get some lab work done so that we've got data to work with rather than putting fear into our clients. And I really strive to help my clients understand that nothing we see in the eyes is good. Nothing we see in the eyes is bad. Everything we see in the eyes is simply information that helps us to ask the right questions to understand what is going on in the body, because how we interpret things will change based on our client's symptoms. Honeybee says this really supports epigenetics, a potential predisposition, but not a sentence. Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. Thanks for bringing that up, Honeybee. Then we're going to look at nerve rings, And I'm just going to do a quick update on my Facebook page because it's looking like the slides are not progressing. They are. Excellent. Great. I know my Facebook friends will let me know if things don't look quite right there. All right, nerve rings. Now, you've seen these wrinkles that come around in the eye. They look like they're turning the eye into a target, right? These are not the result of stress. They won't go away when the stress goes away. They are an indicator that this person tends to process information based on the sympathetic nervous system. So if there is something happening, this person is generally, when they are not well nourished, going to respond with the most intense response they can, right? So they're the ones who will turn, and I'm going to be a little facetious here, they're going to turn a broken fingernail into a life-changing crisis, right? However, when they are well nourished, that broken fingernail is just a broken fingernail. And so when we see these, they teach us about how this person may respond to stress. Aren't they gorgeous eyes, Oxford? Thank you for saying that. They're not mine, but thank you. When we see eyes like this, we understand based then on how our client is describing what's going on. It helps us to understand where they are in nourishing their nervous system. Okay, so if the client is coming in and saying that everything is a crisis, they don't sleep through the night, oh my goodness, their gut isn't working right, oh my goodness, they've got chronic diarrhea, oh my goodness, and I'm not saying those problems are insignificant, but if they are painting them very dramatically, we know that it's the nervous system that needs support. If they're coming at it from a much more calm perspective, we know then that their nervous system is probably being supported and that they probably just need help in those other areas. Okay, so the other thing to remember is these contraction furrows look deeper and darker when the pupil is large. They look shallower and lighter when the pupil is small. And so we're not going to say, if we did pictures of this eye in good lighting and in dim lighting, and we saw that in good lighting, the pupil is small, the contraction furrows look like they're a little bit faded, they're lighter looking. We'd take these photos again with poor lighting, so the pupil is large. We see the contraction furrows look deep and dark. We cannot say that in one eye they are bad and in the other eye they have healed. No, we don't. Contraction furrows do not go away. Their appearance is very strongly influenced by the amount of light and the size of pupils. Even the direction of the light changes how the contraction furrows appear. These are things that I teach in my course, but on a much deeper level. For example, in the course, we teach about how directionality of light affects the images we're looking at. And that is very, very significant. I had a student who is a naturopath who had studied iridology. She had a professional camera, and she kept saying, I never see contraction furrows in my clients' eyes. So I said, send me some photos and let's look at them together. She sent me the photos and I said, well, the problem is your lighting. And she went, oh, so I taught her how to play with the lighting in her camera. And suddenly she's seeing contraction furrows. And it's something that most teachers don't even address, is how to use your equipment. But we spend time on that for students that have a camera, or when they buy a camera after they've graduated, we talk about how to use your camera effectively. All right, venous congestion. This is a little harder to see for my Instagram friends, but what we're looking at is this little bit of a haze that is hanging off the limbus of the iris. So this is actually in the sclera. And it used to be called venous congestion. We now call it a circulatory ring, because it's not always about the veins and the circulation in the veins being sluggish. I have seen very strong correlations with this marking with hypoglycemia and blood sugar imbalances and tired adrenal glands, because when the blood sugars are low and the adrenals are tired, the circulation is compromised. And so I find that if we deal with that, this sign doesn't go away, but the symptoms that go with poor circulation go away. If you're familiar with Jensen, you will have called these lines parasite lines. And that certainly, it is diagnostic again, and we don't do that. Now, in constitutional iridology, we call these radial furrows. The irides can only teach us about things that are inherent. The sclera can teach us about other things, about things that are dynamic, but the irides can only teach us about things that are inherent. They can only teach us about things that affect our DNA. Parasites are hopefully a transient thing. They do not affect our DNA. So to look at someone's eyes and say, you have parasites in your brain, how would you like to hear that? Is totally off base. We do not know if this person has parasites by looking at their eyes. We only know that there is an interruption in how the nervous system works, and potentially the nutrient flow to the nervous system. That doesn't say parasites, not at all. So we use the name radial furrow because that's what it is. This is actually just a separation in the fibers or the trabeculae in the stroma of the iris. That's all it is, a separation. And the separation suggests a slightly weak link that we need to ask questions about. How many of you have heard these called drug spots or Sora? If you have, I'd like to see Sora in the comments. And if you don't know how to spell that, it's up here. Or drug spots. Put in drug spots or Sora, whichever one you can type more easily. All right. North Americans, I don't know if you've noticed this, are cleanse happy. Totally cleanse happy. Hello, Emma and Christy and Payman and Elodie. Good to see you on Instagram. When we are talking about these things, North Americans are just cleanse happy. The number of clients I have that come in for a first appointment and say, what cleanse are you putting me on? And they're so disappointed when I tell them, I'm not putting you on any cleanse. And they say, why? And I say, well, first off, I don't know you well enough. Second off, I don't know how well you're going to follow instructions. And with a cleanse, if you don't follow the instructions properly, you might as well not even do it. And number three, I don't know if you need a cleanse or not. So let's just put that on the back burner. I actually prefer to not do cleanses. I prefer to do the diet modifications so that over time, the body will self-cleanse, right? I prefer a gentle approach to things, and I find it works very well. But North Americans consider it to be a badge of honor. Is it, for those of you who are overseas, is it a badge of honor there too? You know, you wear this badge proudly, I'm on a cleanse, or I just did a 3-week cleanse. It's like something to be proud of. And I'm going, what you're really saying is you treated your body like garbage and now you're trying to make up for it. Like, that's not something to be proud of. What is to be proud of is to say, my health is excellent. I maintain it regularly. I don't need to do a cleanse, right? So different perspectives on things. You know, it's like saying that being full of toxins is a good thing. So we're going to do a cleanse and we're going to be better for them. It's just no. Let's teach our clients to do routine maintenance instead, right? Do you agree with me? Routine maintenance is a good thing. If you agree with that, let's have an agree. Just type in agree in the comments. There's absolutely no scientific proof that says these pigments are the result of chemical use, chemical exposure, toxicity, drug use. Oh, I'm so glad. Oh, Teodora, hello. She's one of the grads in my class. She's with me on Facebook or on the webinar. Hello. And yeah, thank you. People that work in spirituality and holistic nutrition or yoga are like that. Yeah. Other people are not. Yeah. So we need to work on this. It needs to be our mindset and our lifestyle. That's what we need to teach our clients. These spots have nothing to do with exposure. They are inherent. When they show up in an eye, it means the body is inherently programmed to begin having a struggle in that area. And as we see it surface, then we begin to understand what those struggles are. Emma on Instagram says, normal people are happy to make small changes. Yes, I run easy detoxes that more a habit reset. And it's got to be simple, small changes. And that's a good thing. So with these, when we are working with our clients, we are not trying to cleanse these spots out. They are not going to disappear. They are not going away. They are there. The iris accumulates. It does not disperse. So these pigments are not going away. All right. They show what the inherent tendencies of this body are and what organs need more support as the body is aging. Absorption ring versus the gray inner pupillary border. Now, for those of you on Instagram, oh, that's an interesting comment, Honeybee. Thank you. It's a little long to read, but but thank you for that on Instagram. So as we look at this, can you see that right next to the pupil, there is a gray frayed edge? So I'm holding my camera close for Instagram. Christy's asking, even if you fix the issue, they don't go away. No, they don't, because you're not changing your genetic structure. You're changing your functioning within your genetic structure. So the markings don't go away. And after 4 decades in this industry and putting clients through cleanses and changing diets, monitoring my own eyes, my husband's eyes, my children's eyes, I can guarantee they do not go away. So what we're looking at right here is this dark edge. This used to be called an absorption ring. It is now called an inner pupillary border. And when it is colored, when it's off tone for color like this, that is a gray inner pupillary border. You're welcome, Christy. I'm happy to answer questions. I love questions, actually. Hi, John Jensen. Good to see you. So this is actually, the inner pupillary border is actually the correct ophthalmological name for this part of the iris that we are looking at. This area of the iris correlates to the stomach lining, and it teaches us about the stomach's inherent ability to secrete digestive juices. Right? Again, that is not going to go away. But if our client has symptoms of poor digestive function, and we see this, then we know what we need to do to support it. Our client may have figured this out years ago. They may have figured out that certain foods don't work for them. Other foods work for them. They may have figured out which foods actually enhance digestion. They may be doing that. Their digestion may be actually quite good because they are supporting it. If they give up those positive changes, though, they're going to lose ground and they're going to backslide to where their digestion is an issue again. Sometimes the IPB is orange. Why is this one gray? Depends on a lot of things, and that's running into some more in-depth stuff that we're not going to cover today, Oxford. And so we're just going to be happy with knowing the inner pupillary border. When we're looking at gray, it's actually another layer of cells that we're seeing. Or when we're looking at orange, it's another layer of cells that we're seeing, and it means different things. That's a great question. One for a day when we've got more time. Thank you for asking. This was at one point in time called a rheumatic eye. How would you like to hear that one? That you have a rheumatic eye. Doesn't that make you think rheumatic fever, rheumatoid arthritis, all kinds of autoimmune kinds of things going on? We now call it febrile because this doesn't mean that the person has rheumatoid arthritis. It does mean that this is a person whose first line of defense when their immune system is kicking in and is activated is to fever. And so that would be the question we would ask when we see this, because it helps us to understand our client's chemistry. When you were a child, did you fever easily? And if the answer is yes, then we know what we're working with, and we can bring that to modern with them and say, and is that still how your body lets you know it's fighting an infection? And if they say yes, again, we know what we are working with. Oh, this is one of my pet peeves. I have a few of them. Calling this a weak constitution. Would that just make your day for someone to say you've got a weak constitution? Like, if you've got a weak constitution, you already know it. You don't need your face rubbed in it, right? We call this a connective tissue subtype. So in reality, whether your fibers are densely packed and fairly straight or wavy and woven and gappy actually shows your predisposition, not your actual condition. I've worked with clients who had a so-called weak constitution. So they had eyes that looked like this, and they displayed no weakness at all because they had learned to give their bodies what they needed to function well. So when we see an eye like this, we understand, again, where their weak links are or may be, and we need to then ask questions to understand more deeply, is that actually happening? We need to understand their diet, their lifestyle, their history, for us to understand if they've got this under control or if it's something we need to be supporting. And you know what? Even if it is something that ultimately needs supporting, if it's not what they've come to see us about, we are probably not going to address it in that first appointment. Strong constitution. So I was taught to call this a strong constitution. If you had an eye like this that had fibers that were fairly straight and really densely packed, boy, you had a Rolls Royce body. You know, nothing, you were bulletproof, you were untouchable, you were, you know, do what you want, you're going to be fine. But what we know is that is not right. These people they are inherently more resilient to disease, and they recover more easily. It's a little harder to break their body down, but they still can be broken. You can't take a Rolls Royce and forget to do your lube jobs and your oil changes and think that car is going to last forever, right? And so these people still need to do that. And that's usually the lesson they don't learn when they're young. They usually party hard. They get away with everything because they can. And when they turn 40 or 50 years of age, they start having all these symptoms. And the first words they say is, I don't understand. I've never been sick a day in my life. Why is this happening now? We look back at how they have taken care of their body, and we realize that, you know what, you earned the right to have these problems. This is actually what we now call a neurogenic subtype, right? And what that means is that, yes, they are very resilient when they are well nourished, but it also means that they can get stressed out a little bit. So we need to watch that. These people often want everything to be just so. They crave peace and calm, hence the name neurogenic. And if they can't have peace and calm, they don't handle it well. Bowel pockets versus crypts. So as we're looking at this picture, can you see these little dark pieces that are sitting inside this ring that's coming around here. So these little dark bits, these little dark gaps. These are what we call crypts, what other people call bowel pockets. Now, because we are holistic practitioners and we don't have a way to look inside the body, we can't confirm whether there's actually bowel pockets or diverticuli. When we see these crypts, it does suggest a weakness with reduced energy in that bowel, so small and large intestines together, with reduced energy in that area, which might make it harder for the body to offload toxins or utilize nutrients there. And so we need to ask the history. Is there a personal or family history? Because this is all inherited, we always need to know family history here. Is there a personal or family history of constipation, diarrhea, irritable bowel syndrome, or polyps or anything like that? And we need that history to understand what we are working with. We need to find out what their bowel movements are like in order to know how to work with this. Maybe they figured this out years ago. Maybe their bowels are functioning really well because they are doing a really good job of their nutrition and their support for the bowel. Is this all making sense? Hi, Flying 2. It's good to see you on Instagram. Is this all making sense? If this is all making sense, let me know. Just say, makes sense in the comments. Autonomic nerve wreath versus colorette. So this is, oh, good, Sharon. This is the autonomic nerve wreath, as Jensen would call it, or the colorette as we call it. We call it the colorette because it is about so much more than just the nervous system, right? It teaches us about the balance between the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. It teaches us about the tone of the intestinal tract. And if it's pigmented, we can gain insight into how the intestinal tract and the nervous system is being affected by other organs. So it gives us so much more information than just autonomic, than just the nervous system, that we call it the colorette. John Jensen, thank you for saying that makes sense. I appreciate that. And Hyla and Karen and Sharon, thank you so much. Lymphatic rosary. So when they talk about a lymphatic rosary, they're talking about these dots that come around the outer edge of the iris. This, we actually call it the hydrogenoid subtype. In Jensenian or old school iridology, they would say that this says your lymphatic system is in trouble right now. It's stagnant. It's not flushing properly. But remember, this is an inherent marking. And so when we see this, it suggests that there is a risk of the lymphatic system not flushing properly. These individual markings are actually called tophi. Together, when we have enough of them in an eye, it creates the definition for the hydrogenoid subtype. This subtype does have a predisposition towards sluggish lymphatic circulation, but we always need to consider, what is the client already doing? Are they a couch potato? Are they online all the time? Are their thumbs the strongest muscles in their body? Are they eating foods that will gum up the system? Or is this a person who's more diet conscious? They're eating healthy foods, lots of vegetables, they're getting body movement every day, because this makes a huge difference as to whether the lymphatic system is actually working well or not. Okay, and so this is important for us to remember, is that when we look at the eyes, they are inherent. They show us the potentials. We need information from our clients to know how to interpret these eyes. I really have a bee in my bonnet about this idea of posting eye photos online and someone says, tell me what's wrong. And somebody else will give a whole list of markings, a whole list of possible things that are wrong, and then this big long list of things to do about it. That, in my opinion, is of no value. The person who did the analysis hasn't pinpointed what is the client interested in, and has spewed out so much generic information that most of it's not going to be correct. right? And with that, the client doesn't know where to begin, chooses one thing, which may not be the right starting point, therefore doesn't get results, and now thinks iridology is garbage. Whereas if practitioners who want to practice online would be a little more circumspect in what they're doing, if they would ask more questions, understand how the client's symptoms. Thank you, John. John Jensen is saying true. Thank you. Love that validation. But if when you're doing an iris analysis, you have to know your client. You can't just look at the eyes. You have to know your client, right? And when you know your client, then you can do this well. Now that you know some of the modern constitutional language and why it is so much more meaningful in a clinical setting, and why the old language is no longer helpful, if you want to learn more about the upcoming dynamic iridology assessment system for holistic health practitioners, here are just some really basic details. The next course is starting on Wednesday, April 21st at 5 p.m. We'll be Mountain Daylight Time by then. And we're having an info webinar on Wednesday, March 31st at 5 p.m. Mountain Time. Now, if you are interested in joining that info webinar, and I really suggest that that is a smart thing to do if you're looking for an iridology class, because we talk about a lot of the ins and outs. I've just posted that link for those who are with me on the webinar. Those of you who are in my dynamic iridology assessment system for holistic health practitioners, just send me a PM. And if you're with me on Instagram, you may also send me a PM and I will send you the webinar link. Sharon says, I am interested. Yes, Sharon. I hope you will join me for that webinar, but you are also in the Dynamic Iridology Assessment for Holistic Health Practitioners group. So feel free to ask me questions about the course in that group and I will answer them for you. Excellent, excellent, excellent. So again, the people I want to teach in this course are people who have an anatomy and physiology course under their belt and who have a modality under their belt, so herbology or nutrition or something like that, and who are interested in using this on a professional level. This is not going to work for you at all if you don't have anatomy and physiology and if you don't have a modality, right? So just want to make that clear so that no one gets disappointed. Come to the free webinar, the info webinar on March 31st, and you will learn a lot more about it there. That is what I have for you today. Any questions, any comments, anything I can help you with at this point in time, please do the lightning fingers and type it in so that I know to answer you right away. Hello, Iridology. Good to see you on Instagram. I am not seeing anything come in just yet. If you are in my Facebook group, you can ask me questions anytime. If you're not in my Facebook group, if you're on Instagram with me, you can certainly message me there. Those of you who have been with me on the webinar, you've got the registration link. You can go ahead and get registered for that. And, if you want to know when these free trainings are happening, just send me your email address and I will make sure you get added to the weekly emails that go out so that you can be there on these as well. Thank you so much for being with me. I've had a ton of fun. And Sharon says she's got a book by another iridology teacher similar to your philosophy. That's fabulous. That is fabulous. And Venus is saying it is what I learned as well. That's brilliant. Fabulous. I look forward to seeing you again next week. I hope you have a fabulous week and we'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.